Okay.
Yeah.
All right, you good with that?
The whole time I was the position.
Well, I'm still not plugged in, so probably not. But
Well, nobody can speak to that.
You need
Sorry.
to know.
Yes,
I
I
did not
do.
know that, but
Yep, I knew that. Okay, good evening and welcome to the November 17th, 2020 regular meeting of Findlay City Council. We will start with the roll call.
Mr. Greeno, Mr. Haas,
Here.
Mr. Hellman,
Here.
Mr. Niemeyer,
Here.
Mr. Palmer,
Here.
Mr. Russell,
Here.
Mr. Schimmeldecker,
Here.
Mr. Slough,
Here.
Ms. Warnicki,
here.
and Mr. Wilkser.
Present.
FYI, Mr. Greeno contacted me. He is in quarantine right now and did not want to put anybody else in harm's way. I will entertain a motion to excuse him. Mr. Russell.
So moved. Second.
Second, Mr. Slough. All those in favor of excusing Mr. Greeno, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. He is excused. Let's stand for the pledge and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Russell, do we have any, I'm sorry, I will entertain a motion to accept the previous city council meeting minutes. Mr. Slack.
So moved.
Second, Mr. Niemeyer. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of accepting the city council meeting minutes of November 3rd, 2020, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? They are accepted. Mr. Russell, do we have any add-on replacements or removals from tonight's agenda?
Yes, we do. We have an add-on financial summary from Mayor Mern. We have a letter from the Northwest Ohio Realtors Chief Executive Officer Megan Foos concerning the zoning map updates. And we have a replacement for ordinance 2020-133, a change in an appropriation amount, and I would move that those the two be added on and the last one be replaced.
Second, Mr. Slough. Any discussion? All those in favor of the add-on replacement or removals from tonight's agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? The changes are made. We have no proclamations, recognitions, retirement, resolutions, oral communications, petitions, or written communications. I've been informed by, nope, never mind. I was informed and then I was not informed. Okay, reports of municipal officers and municipal departments.
President Harrington, we do have an oral communication.
Yeah, I was going to say we got.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. It's sitting right here in front of you. Oral communication is Tricia Velasek, is that? Is close enough? Who is the executive director of Raise the Bar, and she'd like to speak on the 5-year return on investment in the city of Findlay, the investment in Raise the Bar. You're on.
Mr. President,
Yes.
before Tricia starts, come on up, Trish. Tricia's got about 10 minutes. We're going to give her 4. I would just like to ask council's consent to give her the additional couple of minutes so I don't have to interrupt her in the middle.
Second, Mr. Russell, and all in favor say aye.
Aye.
You got all the time you need.
If I may offer one of these speech. Good evening. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to share with you how your investment in Raise the Bar for the past 5 years has proved to provide quite the impact on our community. I also want to thank Councilmember Mr. Wilkser for his commitment to Raise the Bar's Board of Directors, as well as Mayor Mears, who is our Vice President for Raise the Bar. And we're also joined today by Tim Miley, who is the President of Raise the Bar right now. I'm Tricia Velasque. I am the manager for Raise the Bar, Hancock County. I stepped into this role back in May when Laurie Zadanek departed. It has been great to help facilitate this cradle to career trajectory and instilling these skills that we know individuals need in order to be successful in the workplace today and into the future. What we do is we are a convener. We bring together education providers, government, nonprofits, and government to have these conversations around how do we change the system? How do we change how individuals learn about jobs in our community? How do they raise awareness about the types of skills they need in order to be successful in jobs, which ultimately returns as tax income for our community? So your investment in Raise the Bar has been very purposeful. It has been well spent. We are one of the local entities that is working on workforce development in collaboration with economic development and many other organizations in town. We also have been working, I guess if you could consider this, two different sectors of the workforce. We work with the youth, whose job it is every day to be in school and to learn and to grow. And then we deal with the adult workforce population. So let me share with you just how we have been impacting these two different sectors of our workforce every day. The 10,000 individuals who are part of our youth workforce, those are the individuals in our 9 districts within our county and our city schools. They are learning the professional mannerisms and the key knowledge that they need to fill our jobs now and into the future. They are doing a fantastic job, and the teachers in all these districts are phenomenal, but we are also supplementing them with new skills so that they can be leaders of themselves. We're teaching them to unleash their potential and the strengths that each one of them possess so that they can go forth and be leaders someday, whether they're in the medical field or they're in manufacturing, they're government leaders, or wherever their hearts and their aptitudes allow them to go. We are in all of Findlay City schools. Every building has implemented the Leader in Me process. We are also in all of Macomb's buildings as well as Arlington City schools. We have the goal of bringing the Leader in Me process to all of the county schools by 2025. That's a big investment among this community, but it's one that's worth doing because of the outcomes that are proven around the nation and around the world as to what types of soft skills these youth can develop, whether they're believing in themselves, they're leading themselves before they lead others, they're learning to listen, they're learning to speak confidently, shake your hands, look you in the eyes. These are all qualities we dream about, but they're coming to fruition here in Hancock County. We are also helping in the middle school. We're doing career exploration with these youth because we've learned that once they get to high school, they've decided a little bit more about where they think they should go rather than what opportunities are available to them. Not everybody is ready to go to college, not everyone needs to go to college. We want to make sure that individuals know that there are pathways for them, whether they want to go right into the workforce, or they want to earn while they learn, or they go to college and come back and start a wonderful career. In non-COVID years, as you can imagine, we have 1,000 8th graders walking throughout our manufacturing facilities, and they get to see and smell and touch and feel the products that we produce locally. I don't think they truly grasp what is going on in this county, as most even adults do not realize the potential that we have in our community. But we're helping them see this new possibility of something that's different than what their parents or their grandparents have taught them about manufacturing. It's not dirty, dark, and dangerous. It's really high tech and clean and really innovative. We are also helping our high school students, the seniors and juniors, see what careers are available after a career day. They go to college fairs on one half and then a career fair on the other half. Again, that's not possible in these non-COVID days. That is something that we still aspire to grow as we can go. And then this last October, we helped sponsor what's called the Lit Man Project. We were connecting literacy and manufacturing, and we're getting that into the 3rd grade students in this community. We delivered almost 800 books to elementary 3rd graders that deal with manufacturing. And we also put together a one-pager to help them see what products are made here in town, and specifically around the automotive workforce. Because I don't think they realize that the cars they're riding every day have parts that were built right here in Findlay, Hancock County. And their parents probably don't know that either. So that was a way to raise awareness, and they had really positive outcomes. And then the last program I want to share is with our Ohio Federation for Advanced Manufacturing Education. That's a mouthful for Ohio FAME. Ohio FAME is that Earn While You Learn program. It's not an apprenticeship where you get a journeyman's card, or it's where you are earning an associate's degree from Owens Community College here in Findlay in Technical Studies of Applied Engineering. And you are also going to work. You go to school 2 days per week and work 3 days per week. We've been growing that. We're entering our third cohort, but we have 18 individuals among 8 companies here in this town, and we are growing with 4 new companies into the program this next year. So the Pathway of Fame is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to exposing our adult population to their pathways. The model is applicable and replicable and scalable to many other industry sectors in our community. And we want to see it expand to meet other areas of needs with our manufacturers or cyber, internet, or even our medical professions. So I just wanted to share with you, though, that these are all of the ways that we have been serving our community. It will pay dividends to have individuals who are employable, who want to stay in Hancock County, who want to live in the city of Findlay, because that'll return the income back to here, to this council and to the services and infrastructure that you all can offer. I'm happy to entertain any questions you might have.
Questions or comments? Mr. Wilson?
Tricia, thank you for coming in, spending a couple minutes of your evening with us tonight. And Tim, thank you for coming also. I know I've talked to council about this once every year since we've been involved with this, and Raise the Bar is really starting to gain the momentum that we've expected for some time now. And Tricia is really pushing things forward. The biggest factor, once you get past the amazing things that the Leader in Me project does for our children, because that is truly an amazing sight with our kids, and now it's getting all the way through high school. I hear my swimmers and talk about that stuff, and I'm like, oh Jesus, okay. It's good, right? It's a good thing, but it's worked its way through the system. But for me, it's the things that we're doing with the cohorts and the FAME program, and ultimately keeping our workforce here in Hancock County. And that's ultimately the thing that pays the dividends for the money that we have invested in this board and these programs. So it's money well spent for what we get back out of it. It's a really good investment, and I think we're well to do to keep going with this for some time forward. And in fact, we're going to put this into next year's budget, correct, Mayor? And we can discuss it more at budget time, but it will be in there as an item for us to approve going forward.
Any other questions or comments? Ms. Mayor?
One thing I just wanted to reiterate is, as Tricia briefly mentioned, FAME, which is the Federation of Advanced Manufacturing Education, the city of Findlay, Hancock County is the only program of FAME in the state of Ohio at this point. It was originally started with Toyota and the importance of education, and I think it's really important to recognize that the climate and the idea, as we're talking about with educating our middle school and high schoolers, but also their families around what manufacturing is and the high caliber jobs that it creates. They are not traditional old school manufacturing, low wage jobs. These are advanced manufacturing, good paying jobs, and the Hancock County has seen that in our wage growth among manufacturing and logistics jobs. And so though they are a transition and there's education that comes with that, I think it's just important to mention the benefit that we are bringing not only to Findlay, Hancock County, but the state of Ohio, and the recognition that we are already receiving at the state level, and the interest in some of the Ohio Manufacturing Association with a number of companies and organizations that are really recognizing Findlay and Hancock County as a leader. And again, these small investments that we make set us apart. They attract businesses, they attract employees, they attract employers, and it really helps us continue to be that top caliber community that's setting the example for communities across the state of Ohio. So appreciate, as Councilman Wobser mentioned, this has already been built into our budget that you will be seeing presented in a couple of days, but it's definitely money well spent. So thank you.
Trish, go ahead.
That's all.
Any other questions? Mr. Russell?
So you said 18 individuals are in the FAME program so far. I didn't catch how many companies are there right currently?
We have 8 companies in right now.
And then 4 more are going to be added?
They kind of rotate and cycle, but we're picking up 4 new. So right now we have 7 companies that are committed for next year.
So how does someone get involved with this program from a individual standpoint? And to me, 18, that's great. I'm glad we have 18. I'd like it a lot more if we had 28 or 38 or 50. What limits the access or the number of folks in this?
What's limiting it is we can only fill as many seats as the employers open up for them. And that means that the employers have to commit to at least $12 an hour and paying for at least 1/2 of the students' tuition and fees throughout the program. So it's a $10,000 investment in an individual on behalf of each company. They also have to make sure that they're not filling too many of their technician spots. Some of our companies have filled that pipeline and they need to start moving people out so they can fill it again. So it is really just a maneuvering of individuals, but we're looking to grow, and there are more companies seeing the potential and the return on their investment by being in the program, but we can only grow it at a certain rate.
So then when a slot becomes open, is there in essence like a waiting list of individuals who are interested?
We only accept individuals once a year. So the cohort always starts in the summer, which means we're actually accepting applications right now. They would interview with all of the companies who are part of the 2021 program here in the spring to be selected in March or April and start over the summer. So we only do it once a year, but it's an application process and an interview with because it's a commitment between the company and that employee.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you.
Thank you.
It's a great program.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry I almost forgot about you there, but I wouldn't have. The mayor always keeps me on track. Reports from municipal officers and departments.
City Income Tax Monthly Collections Report for October 2020.
Report to be filed.
Findlay Fire Departmental Activities Report for October 2020.
Mr. Russell?
We have an add-on letter for written communications too.
Oh, I'm sorry. You have that? One moment, please. Okay, let's go back to written communications.
A letter from Northwest Ohio Realtors Chief Executive Officer Megan Foes, or Foos, on behalf of the 1,900 realtors served by Northwest Ohio Realtors and the clients they serve. I am writing this letter in favor of the Findlay zoning map update. As you know, the City of Findlay zoning map needs updated to correct inconsistencies between the existing use of properties and their current zoning classification. These inconsistencies cause limitation on property utilization and cost property owners time and money. Oftentimes, these zoning inconsistencies are found when the property owner sells their property, causing delays in the transfer of property. Thank you for taking the time to address this important issue. I look forward to sharing these changes with our membership once they are approved. Please email me at megan@nworealtors.com or call me at 419-535-3222 if I can be of any help.
Questions or comments? Letter to be filed. Okay, we were on fire department? Okay.
Findlay Fire Department Activities Report for October 2020.
Questions or comments? Report to be filed.
Findlay Municipal Court Activities Report for October 2020.
Questions or comments? Report to be filed.
Findlay Police Departmental Activities Report for October 2020.
Questions or comments? Report to be filed.
Summary financial reports for month ending October 31st, 2020.
Questions or comments? Reports to be filed.
Letter from Hancock Regional Planning Commissioner Director Cordano regarding amendment to map update via ordinance 2020-124.
Questions or comments? Letter to be filed. Oh, sorry, Mr. Russell.
Matt, just for clarification's sake, one property, two zoning classifications. Can you just do a little explanation on what that really is, what's really happening there?
Real quick, so, for example, you have one parcel, and let's say the first 500 feet is zoned commercial, and then the 200 feet, the other 200 feet is zoned residential. When we update those parcels from the auditor's office, we import the data, and GIS assigns it one zoning classification. So we have to go in and manually draw in the line for those dual zoning parcels. So we found these 7 parcels in-house, and we corrected them.
Is that something that, obviously it's a rarity if there's only 7 of them, is that something that we would allow going forward? Or is those, and then obviously the follow-up question is, have these things been around since forever?
They've been around forever, but we've reduced them. We had several hundred. For example, Lima Avenue. There was a period of time where 200 feet from Lima Avenue was commercial, and then 200 plus feet away from Lima Avenue was residential. And so we had several hundred parcels that had dual zoning. When we updated the map in 2012, a lot of those were removed. So some of these are just remnants. Some were, one example is the church across from the Ridge Toyota. That's 5-acre site. The neighborhood did not want the commercial protruding into the neighborhood, so 1 acre of that was residential to keep the neighborhood intact. So just a few, and we discourage it, but they're still around.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Letter to be filed.
Letter from City Engineer Thomas regarding 2018 Annual Sewer and Manhole Lining Program, project number 35680200.
Letters or comments? Mr. Wilson.
Brian, quick question for you. You had, you mentioned in the bottom of your letter that you closed out a sanitary sewer project for, in return, $13,000 of unspent funds. What year was that? Did we appropriate those funds?
For that project, that was a 19 project.
19 projects. Okay, very good. So it was just last year.
Yep.
Very good. Thank you.
Did just want to point out that we do return stuff. A lot of projects, we try to get them under budget if we can. So yes, I'm asking for 20-some thousand, but I just returned 13. So I just wanted to bring that to everybody's attention.
So you're paying the extra 7 then?
That's why I'm here.
We do take PayPal.
Oh, okay, thank you. Or Venmo.
All right, any other questions or comments? Hearing none, letter to be filed.
Letter from City Auditor Stashak regarding Coronavirus Relief Fund.
Questions or comments? Letter to be filed.
Top Management Overview from Human Resources Director Essex.
Questions or comments? Letter to be filed. Nope. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you have a comment you wanted to make? Mr. Station.
Just for the benefit of the group, I want to make sure everybody's aware that when we get the rebates for workers' comp, for example, the last rebate we got, which was wonderful, was $369,000. Of the $369,000, only $256,000 ends up in the general fund. We have to, per ruling by the state auditor from years and years ago, apply the funds to the funds in which they were spent. So water, so any fund you have with people as workers' comp. So with the big amount that's going to come in, the same thing is going to happen, with the caveat that this will be the biggest refund we've ever received, and we can't return more to, for example, streets than streets paid out. Any balance at that point will go to general funds. There are always exceptions to the rules, but I just want to make this body aware of that.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, letter to be filed.
Treasurer's Reconciliation Report for October 31st, 2020.
Questions or comments? Report to be filed. HR claim from Essex.
I just did.
Oh, that was one of them. Okay, never mind.
Financial Summary Report from Mayor Mern.
Questions or comments? Report to be filed. Committee reports.
The Appropriations Committee, to whom was referred a request to discuss the Resiliency Fund via Ordinance 2020-130. We recommend that funds from the second round of CARES Act funding be distributed in the following manner. First priority will be disbursement through the Findlay Hancock County Resilience Program as it is laid out in the attached documents. Second priority will be disbursement of any remaining funds as was laid out in the Appropriations Committee report dated July 14, 2020. Also, the current legislation, Ordinance 2021-130, will be amended by removing all language referring to any appropriations.
Questions or comments? And we'll entertain a motion to accept the appropriations. Mr. Wilson.
So moved.
Second, Mr. Palmer. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the Appropriations Committee report say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Committee report is adopted.
The Planning and Zoning Committee, to whom was referred a request from David and Jacqueline Rader to rezone 726 South Blanchard Street from R4 duplex triplex to C2 commercial district. We recommend approval as requested.
Mr. Slough.
I would move for adoption of the committee report.
Second, Mr. Palmer. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the P&Z Committee report say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. The committee report is adopted. Legislation.
Second reading for Resolution 3030-2020, a resolution authorizing the mayor of the city of Findlay, Hancock County, state of Ohio, to execute an agreement with Findlay Hope House for the Homeless Incorporated to provide fair housing services for residents of the city of Findlay beginning November 1st, 2020.
Okay, next one.
Second reading of Ordinance 31-2020, a resolution approving the expenditures made by the auditor's office on the attached list of vouchers which either exceed the purchase order or were incurred without a purchase order, exceeding the statutory limit of $3,000, all in accordance with Ohio Revised Code 5705.41B.
Mr. Wilson.
Make a motion to approve Resolution 031-2020.
It's only second reading.
That was only second reading.
Oh, I'm sorry.
In red, it says only requires one.
I
Is that a
said
mistake?
Typo?
mine shows it requires 3. Mr. Station.
Typically, in the past, although I'm not the law director, you approve these after a single reading, and we did have that come up about a year ago when the assistant law directors was here, and they affirmed that at that time.
Well, I'm no lawyer, and I'm not going to pretend to be one, right? So mine shows that it needs 3 readings. If council decides they want to suspend the rules, we could do it that way, and that way it would probably accomplish both, even if it only required 1. Mr. Russell.
Move the council statutory rules be suspended and resolution 031-2020 be given its third reading.
Second, Mr. Wobser. All those in favor of suspending the rules say aye. If your name is called, those opposed, nay.
Mr. Haas?
Aye.
Mr. Hellman?
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer?
Aye.
Mr. Palmer?
Aye.
Mr. Russell?
Aye.
Mr. Schindeldecker?
Aye.
Mr. Slough?
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki?
Aye.
And Mr. Wobser?
Aye.
The rules have been suspended, and the clerk will give this its third reading.
Resolution 31-2020.
Mr. Wobser.
Make a motion to approve.
Second, Mr. Palmer. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor of the resolution say aye. If your name is called, those opposed, nay.
Mr. Hellman?
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer?
Aye.
Mr. Palmer?
Aye.
Mr. Russell?
Aye.
Mr. Schindeldecker?
Aye.
Mr. Slough?
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki?
Aye.
Mr. Wobser?
Aye.
And Mr. Haas?
Aye.
The resolution is adopted. Ordinances.
Third reading for ordinance 2020-121, and ordinance establishing job classifications, pay ranges, salary schedules, and other matters that may affect pay for all non-elected officers and employees of the city of Findlay, Ohio, and repealing ordinance number 2019-86, and all other ordinances and or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Slough.
I would move for adoption of ordinance 2020-121.
Second, Mr. Haas. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor of ordinance 2020-121, say aye. If your name is called, those opposed, nay.
Mr. Niemeyer.
Aye.
Mr. Palmer.
Aye.
Mr. Russell.
Aye.
Mr. Schindeldecker.
Aye.
Mr. Slough.
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki.
Aye.
Mr. Wobser.
Aye.
Mr. Haas.
Aye.
And Mr. Hellman.
Aye.
The ordinance is adopted.
Third reading for ordinance 2020-124, an ordinance repealing the current zoning map included in the current zoning code, chapter 1101, et sec, of the codified ordinances of the city of Findlay, Ohio, and in its place adopting, approving, and incorporating a revised zoning map attached hereto as if fully rewritten herein.
Mr. Hellman.
I would move to approve ordinance 2020-124.
Second, Mr. Slough. Discussion. Mr. Schindeldecker.
I will be voting against this, although I want to make it clear that I do not object to the changes that have been made. I think as time goes on, changes like these are necessary. However, I've said from the very beginning I thought it would be far more efficient and less intrusive simply to change the language rather than affect over 6,000 parcels of property.
Any other questions or comments? Mr. Hellman.
Yes, Mr. President, I guess the only thing I'd like to say is compliment Matt Cordine and his entire staff for this project that has taken, longer than a year or two. It was an arduous undertaking, and I think they've ended up with a great project, and I commend them for the professionalism and the way they've handled it. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of ordinance 2020-124 say aye if your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Palmer.
Aye.
Mr. Russell.
Aye.
Mr. Schindeldecker.
Nay.
Mr. Slough.
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki.
Aye.
Mr. Wobser.
Aye.
Mr. Haas.
Aye.
Mr. Hellman.
Aye.
And Mr. Niemeyer.
Aye.
The ordinance is adopted.
Second reading for ordinance 2020-126, an ordinance authorizing the mayor of the city of Findlay, Ohio to extend its financial commitment to the Blanchard River Watershed Partnership of $5,000 per year for calendar years 2020, 2021 through 2023 and declaring an emergency.
Next one.
Second reading for ordinance 2020-127, an ordinance appropriating funds and declaring an emergency.
Next one.
Second reading for ordinance 2020-128, an ordinance authorizing the mayor of the city of Findlay, Ohio to enter into an agreement with the Hancock Regional Planning Commission, hereinafter referred to as HRPC, for the facilitation and preparation of the Community Development Block Grant Program and declaring an emergency.
Okay, next one. 132.
First reading for ordinance 2020-132, an ordinance appropriating funds and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Slough.
I would move the statutory rules of council be suspended and this ordinance be given its second and third reading.
Second, Mr. Hellman. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor, oh, I'm sorry, there is no discussion because we're suspending the rules. So even if you wanted to say something, you can't. All those in favor of suspending the rules, say aye if your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Russell.
Aye.
Mr. Schindeldecker.
Aye.
Mr. Slough.
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki.
Aye.
Mr. Wobser.
Aye.
Mr. Haas.
Aye.
Mr. Hellman.
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer.
Aye.
And Mr. Palmer.
Aye.
The rules of council have been suspended, and the clerk will give this ordinance its second and third reading.
Ordinance 2020-132, ordinance 2020-132.
Mr. Hellman.
I move to approve ordinance 2020-132.
Second, Mr. Slough. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the ordinance say aye if your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Schindeldecker.
Aye.
Mr. Slough.
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki.
Aye.
Mr. Wobser.
Aye.
Mr. Haas.
Aye.
Mr. Hellman.
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer.
Aye.
Mr. Palmer.
Aye.
And Mr. Russell.
Aye.
The ordinance is adopted.
First reading for ordinance 2020-133, an ordinance appropriating funds and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Wilson.
Because of the timeline that we're working with on the CARES Act, I'd like to make a motion to suspend council's rules and give this legislation its second and third reading.
Second, Mr. Haas. All those in favor of suspending the rules say aye if your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Slough?
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki? Mr. Wobser?
Aye.
Mr. Haas?
Aye.
Mr. Hellman?
Aye.
Mr. Palmer?
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer?
Aye.
Mr. Russell?
Aye.
And Mr. Schindledecker.
Aye.
The rules have been suspended, and the clerk will give this its second and third reading.
Ordinance 2020-133, ordinance 2020-133.
Mr. Wobson.
Make a motion to approve ordinance 2020-133.
Second, Mr. Palmer. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of ordinance 2020-133, say aye if your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Ms. Warnicki?
Aye.
Mr. Wobser?
Aye.
Mr. Haas?
Aye.
Mr. Hellman?
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer?
Aye.
Mr. Palmer?
Aye.
Mr. Russell?
Aye.
Mr. Schindledecker?
Aye.
And Mr. Slough.
Aye.
The ordinance is adopted.
First reading for ordinance 2020-134, an ordinance amending chapter 1100 et sec of the codified ordinances of the city of Findlay, Ohio, known as the zoning code by rezoning the following described property, referred to as 726 South Blanchard Street rezone, which previously was zoned R4 duplex triplex to C2 commercial district.
Is that it? Okay. Any old business? Mr. Wilson.
I'd like to make a motion to take off the table ordinance 2020-130.
Second, Mr. Russell. All those in favor of untabling ordinance 2020-130, say aye if your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Wobser?
Aye.
Mr. Haas?
Aye.
Mr. Hellman?
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer?
Aye.
Mr. Palmer?
Aye.
Mr. Russell?
Aye.
Mr. Schindledecker?
Aye.
Mr. Slough?
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki?
Aye.
It is untabled. It came to my attention that this had had its 3 readings, right?
That is correct.
So even though it says first reading on 11/3/20, that was its 3rd reading. So at this point in time, there's any discussion, and then we will vote. Any discussion on the ordinance?
Would like to make a motion to adopt?
Wouldn't it, I thought we had 3 readings.
We just untabled.
Okay. I'm sorry, make a motion to adopt. Mr. Wilson.
So moved.
Second, Ms. Warnicki. Now discussion.
Jim, do you want to start or do you want me to go first? Go ahead. So, council, you saw the committee report that appropriations put together. This is explaining a little bit more about what's going to happen with these funds. And if you read through all the documents that the mayor and all the folks that are working with this project from the
Community Foundation.
Thank you, Mayor. Community Foundation, it's late. Getting this put together has been quite the job to get this done in the deadlines that we're working against. And it's going to be even a bigger job to try to get the money dispersed if we get any money. So, with all of that said, there's one thing that we have to do, and I think this is what the mayor's going to tell me, or excuse me, the auditor's going to talk about possibly, is that we need to amend the actual ordinance and take out section 2, which talks about the appropriation. And if we simply delete that, we're in good shape. Correct, Jim? Very good. So what I would like to do next is make a motion to amend the ordinance and to delete section 2, which talks about the necessary to make an appropriation, which we do not. That's why we're taking that language out.
Second, Mr. Palmer. Any discussion on his proposal? Hearing none. All those in favor of amending ordinance 2020-130, say aye if your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Haas?
Aye.
Mr. Hellman?
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer?
Aye.
Mr. Palmer?
Aye.
Mr. Russell?
Aye.
Mr. Schindledecker?
Aye.
Mr. Slough?
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki?
Aye.
And Mr. Wobser?
Aye.
The ordinance is amended. Mr. Wilson.
I would, if any council has any questions about this, I apologize. It's been very confusing, mostly because of things I did. I apologize for that, but if we get money, which we don't know yet, Jim, is that correct?
I did get an update from the county auditor today,
Ah,
or that if you'd like.
sure.
Yep. Mr. Station.
Very quickly, it's very similar to our last update. The county auditor issued or put an email out to all the fiscal officers in the county stated that currently they have $400,000 that has not been claimed, that all the other monies are with the appropriate entities around the county, and their deadline for returning the funds is November 19th to the county auditor. If they wish to be excluded from the 24 entities who are currently eligible for redistribution, subject to them encumbering all the money, they need to send at least $1 back, as what the email said. So that indicates to me there's a discussion that more than $400,000 should be available. But again, we won't know until after the 19th. Money has to be redistributed by November 25th.
Any questions for the auditor? Mayor. Ms. Mayor.
I was just going to follow up. I appreciate that update. Certainly, I know we've been watching this closely, and we're hoping to have something to you all prior to this point so that we could do this. Again, wanting to do something that would benefit countywide and not just City of Findlay. So I will make sure to follow up with the different entities throughout the community to make sure that they are aware of our desire to do this and the benefit that it will provide. As you saw in the documentation, hopefully, we have specifically included individual representatives from the Township Association as well as a county commissioner, because we want this to be something that we help facilitate, but that benefits not only the City of Findlay organizations, but the county at large. And so hopefully they see that benefit as well, and we can work with them to put some of these funds towards it and then reevaluate as time goes on. So appreciate your consideration of this. A lot of great work has gone in. Shout out to the Community Foundation for helping find other models for us to base this off of and helping put together these documents, and the auditor and Ginger to help us put this together. And I think this will be a great benefit to the community. And Councilman Wobser has dealt with many emails and calls from me throughout this, so thank you. But I think this will be great, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none. We've amended it. Now we're going to, and we have made a motion to accept it in the second. So all those in favor of the ordinance, say aye if your name is called. Those opposed, nay. That
As it, and it's
Okay.
standing,
Okay.
as amended.
you have who that was? Who seconded that? Oh, Mr. Palmer. Okay, thank you. So all those in favor of the ordinance, say aye if your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Holman?
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer?
Aye.
Mr. Palmer?
Aye.
Mr. Russell?
Aye.
Mr. Schindeldecker?
Aye.
Mr. Slough?
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki?
Aye.
Mr. Wokser?
Aye.
Mr. Haas?
Aye. The ordinance is adopted. I heard a big sigh of relief over there. Any other old business? Mr. Spatial.
Thank you again. Two very quick items. One, it's coming up to our budget hearings, and I guess I would request that your body decide how you would like to do them this year. Are you going to do them by Zoom? Are you going to do them in here? You generally see department heads and different things, so I just throw that out there, not to participate in your discussion, but to start it. And the second thing is, because of the coronavirus and all these other projects we've been working on, we do a cleanup ordinance, and it's normally the first meeting in December, sometimes the last in November, but we're not going to be able to get it to you until the last meeting in December, which is December 15th, so I just would request or hope that you're going to have a quorum. If not, can we please make arrangements prior to that to pass that emergency? There's going to be a number. It's normally a dozen or so items, and it's very general housekeeping, but it's housekeeping that has to be done to keep us compliant with the state laws. So those are the two things I had, and thank you.
Any other old business? New business? Ms. Mayor? I'm sorry, but the census is over. You can't speak about that anymore.
All I would say about the census is thank God the census is over. No, just a couple of items I wanted to touch on. Again, thank you for your support of the Resilience Fund. I know that that is going to be a great support to to our nonprofit organizations, and we are working very hard throughout the community to make sure that our nonprofits, our businesses, everybody, this has been a rough year, and we recognize that everybody has a very important role to play in our community, and so we are going to do our best to continue to support them however we may be able to. And then just wanted to hit real quick on the continued great management by our department heads on 2 items that you saw on your agenda this evening. One, Bureau of Workers' Comp. It is fantastic that we are getting such a substantial refund from the state. That goes back to the diligent management of both safety in our workforce, managing those claims, and that goes back to our department heads really managing and instilling upon people the importance of a safe work environment, managing that, and then Don Essex really continuing to manage and keep a close eye on that. So that will be a great amount of money coming back from the state, so we're happy to see that. And then the budget summary document that you had in front of you through October, continuing to keep our budget, our revenue and expenses very close in line. So that's great to see. And we expect, as you can see right at the bottom, revenue year to date through October, 22.99. Expenses 22.826. So we're right in line. We're going to continue to, diligently manage that with the Bureau of Workers' Comp refund, with the CARES dollars. We are looking to be in a good position ending this year and setting ourselves up for success to be able to manage these next 2 years pretty break even as we see where next year goes. And then finally, I want just to press upon all of you to continue to reiterate the message around needing to make wise decisions with COVID. We continue to see the numbers increase in our community, and they're getting quite concerning. Today, as I was speaking with hospital leadership as well as the health commissioner, we are really trending in a bad direction. And I know that we continue to impress upon everyone the importance of the face coverings and social distancing and good hygienes, staying home when you are ill, and really our next line of defense as we start to see the increase is staying away from groups. We are going to continue to space folks out. We will reevaluate if we need to look at alternative methods of meeting. But ultimately, as we go through the next couple of months, we really have to be smart in managing that, because anytime we see this uptick in cases, we're going to see the hospitalizations and those severe cases come 2 to 4 weeks after that. And so we really have to make sure that we are managing our healthcare resources. So it's not fun. I hate canceling things. I hate asking people to stay away from people that they love. But we really have to make those tough decisions right now. And so I would just ask each of you to evaluate, as the governor did, what is the one change, at least, that you can make each day to protect yourself and those around you, limiting exposure and making those decisions to be able to keep our economy open, to keep people safe, and to combat the COVID virus. And all say your extra prayers that the vaccine gets here sooner rather than later. I believe that is it for me. Did anyone have any questions?
Mr. Hellman.
I have a question that doesn't have anything to do with this.
That is perfectly fine.
It has to do with other people that we love.
Okay.
Our department heads.
Yes.
Do you know whether or not they would have an interest in coming in here, as they have in the past, when we have budget hearings, and speaking to city council about what they recommend for their departments? Or do they find it to be pain in the neck?
I think that they are always happy to come in and talk about the accomplishments that they have achieved the past year and what they are presenting to you. That is a great opportunity from them. I know that you all are going to be discussing what do our budget hearings need to look like this year. I would certainly be supportive of moving that to Zoom or a hybrid model, whatever you all are comfortable with. I know there are a couple folks that are not able to make it if we do it on the 9th and 10th. We will accommodate that as best we can, but if we want to look at other dates, we're flexible. You tell us what works for you. Our budget is not going to be super exciting this year. It's really going to be pretty much like you've seen the last couple of years, and we're going to manage it the way we have. So as I mentioned, with our strong financial position and going into next year, I would expect our goal is to continue to be break even. And I think our budget, last time I looked, we're proposing a $3 to $4 million deficit budget, but as you have seen over the last number of years, we have managed that and brought it pretty close, and I would expect that this year, knock on wood, we're looking that we will be able to give some funds back to the general fund at this point. So, yeah, happy to address you, however, whatever we are comfortable with.
My own personal opinion is
Can you speak into your microphone just to make sure folks that may be watching can listen to your lovely voice?
I don't know that it needs to be recorded, but I was just going to mention that I've enjoyed having the department heads come in and explain what they've done and what they plan to do. So I would prefer, I guess, that we hear from them.
And we are preparing them to do that. So if it is virtual or in person, we will adjust however we need to.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you.
Yes, thank you. Any other questions? All right, thanks.
Thank you. Any other new business, Mr. Russell?
Well, let's cover when we want to do these budget hearings. If we're going to stick with the 8th and the 9th, then I would definitely request that in some manner that they be made available via Zoom or audio. I will be out of town on the 8th and the 9th and not able to attend, or 9th and 10th, excuse me. If we would push it back to the following week to the 16th and 17th, even if I was in town, I think I would still, in light of COVID, think it's something that we should seriously consider doing via Zoom if technically possible with this large of a group. And I'm sure that the city staff would appreciate it also, so that they wouldn't have to come in here and sit and wait for us and all that. But I'd like to at least get this settled tonight.
Mr. Wilson?
I agree with Councilman Russell. I think we should move to a Zoom meeting, and I guess my question then goes to the mayor. Are you able to facilitate that with your department heads, et cetera? Because most of the burden is on your all's group to present to us.
Yes, we can certainly do that. We are set up, our Zoom license currently can accommodate up to 100 people. So that would not be a problem, and then we would also be able to make that available to the public if they would like to view it.
Very good. Auditor, are you okay with a Zoom type meeting on that for budgets?
As long as it's the week that we have planned and not the week after.
Understood. I agree. I think we ought to stick with the original schedule of 9th, 10th. I understand Councilman Russell would be able to attend, correct, Grant? If it's on Zoom, so I think that's a good thing for us.
Did we set a time? Normally we start at 5:30.
We did not. We were just proposing dates.
So I understand, right, from council, and I want to raise hands that everybody's okay with the Zoom meeting. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Second, let's, the two dates are okay with everybody,
Those two dates are the 9th and the 10th.
9th and 10th. And so normally the 9th it lasts a little longer than the 10th, only because we try to get as much done as we can, but you know, we don't like a long meeting because we kind of lose you after a certain period of time. And in the past, it's funny, if I pull up my calendar and put in budget hearing, it says 5:30 when we started last time. If that's okay with everybody on the 9th, and I hear no objections. And mayor and auditor, do you think 5:30 till 8? Is that too long? Go ahead.
I can look at the schedule just with the time slots for the different departments, if you wouldn't mind. If we can plan on 5:30, I will look at what we can have done in the past couple of years and send out a tentative schedule based off of that start time. And then obviously our department heads are always prepared to kind of come in if things move along faster or adjust from there.
Mr. Schindeldecker's reminded me more than once that the budget hearings used to go till about midnight.
We will avoid that.
Yes. And so I will not allow that to happen. That's why we've gone to 2.
Well,
but
the mayor used to provide dinner also.
Yeah.
Maybe we could do DoorDash, Christina. Have a
Sure,
delivery.
pick your local business and I will buy dinner.
I'm kidding.
So plan on those 2 dates, starting at 5:30 on each, and we'll let you know how long each of those will go. With no objections, so ordered. And via Zoom. So we'll set it up for Zoom. Any other new business? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved by everybody, seconded by anybody. No, Mr. Hellman and Mr. Haas. All those in favor of adjourn, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody want to stay? No.
Yeah.
All right. We are adjourned.
You're all getting microwave popcorn and Gatorade. Make it yourself.
There you go. We're on budget.
I like the Gatorade.